Hello, everyone, and welcome to Taylored Acres. I'm Taylor, and I'm a gardener in central Wisconsin, Zone 4B. So, today I want to share with you my thoughts on growing winter rye as a cover crop for the first time this past season. Overall, I was really impressed, but I also learned a few hard lessons. So, let's dive into what worked, what didn't, and how I will be changing things up for this year. Last year, I ended up planting my winter rye on October 9th, and that was a little bit behind schedule from what I've seen is the sweet spot, which is about late September, 3 to 4 weeks before our first hard frost, which is usually mid-October for us. So you want the seeds to germinate and send roots down to be able to survive winter. I do have a separate video showing how I planted it if you are interested in that. I'll link it here. A few mistakes that I made when I planted my seed was one, I'm going to get it planted a little bit earlier this year. Two is that I needed to seed it heavier. You can see that there are gaps in where they came up in the following pictures. And also, that may have to do with how much I covered the seed. You are supposed to have some cover on it, and I was going to mulch it all in with compost, but I didn't have enough to really cover it. So they were exposed, and I think all the critters were eating the seed up. This picture is from October 28th, showing you the sprouts. I kept the sprouts watered all fall until we had to winterize our water lines. And at that point, it was cool enough that the soil wasn't totally drying out in between precipitation. So once the snow came, these guys didn't care at all. They are actually hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Once spring came, the growth really took off. And at this point in early May, I knew that we were not going to be making seed heads by the time mid-May came, when our last frost date is and when I want to plant a lot of my warm weather annuals. So at this point, I was making further plans on how I was going to terminate this. I'll show you what I did in a minute, but at this point, early May, I should have cut this back and tarped it with dark plastic to kill it all off. This really delayed my seed planting and transfers for seedlings a lot. So it really screwed up my growing season by waiting, but I kind of got scared to terminate it. It was around May 18th that I noticed that the seed heads were starting to grow, and it took until about June 2nd until the seed heads were releasing pollen. Once the flowers are out on these, the pollen's released, is a great time to terminate it. They won't regrow at that point because they were putting all their energy into starting to grow their seeds. So at that point, I cut it all down just with some scissors. You can use a weed whipper, a hedge trimmer, anything you have to help you out with that. And I stacked all mine up on the sides here so I could get to it all. And then I put it all right back on top before I laid some black plastic down to make sure that everything was dead. I don't know if I would have had to do this step or not, but at this point, I didn't want to risk it. I'm probably going to follow a similar process next year. I'm just going to do it a lot sooner so that I can tarp it for 2 weeks before I'm ready to plant. So I'll probably do some early May so that I can plant out mid-May, and then some mid-May so I can plant out at the beginning of June, depending on what warm weather perennials or annuals that I'm going to be planting out. There were some areas that I wanted to plant in immediately, so I actually just pulled these rye plants out by hand. So I just shook off the dirt and planted directly into it that same day. And that stuff did perfectly fine. So that worked as well to terminate it, although it was very labor intensive. You could definitely pull this at any stage and it will be a successful termination. The bad thing about pulling it is you're not getting those full benefits from the loosened soil, and just your overall soil health won't be quite as good as if you terminated it and left it as is with the roots in the ground. After 2 weeks of the tarps, I put my normal landscape fabric on with the holes in it, and planted directly into it. So I left all the rye on top of there as weed suppression, and it worked really, really good. In the vegetable garden here, I planted all my cool season crops on the left side, so I did not ever plant any winter rye there, and I will be doing that again next year because I'm planting things out mid-April and the rye doesn't really get a chance to do anything to help you. And then on this side, on the right side, is where I planted the rye, and I actually ended up pulling this all by hand. But the soil health is definitely really good over here. It's nice and fluffy, and everything worked out super well. I'm very happy with this cover crop method. So yeah, I'll be doing it again next year in the vegetable garden where I'm planting the warm season stuff. So that's, like basil and tomatoes and zinnias and peppers and zucchinis, stuff like that, where you're not planting until late May or early June. In the areas between my squash this year, I left the winter rye grow. So you can see it's ready to harvest now for seed, which is what I did. And I'm going to be planting some of that next year. So if you can let some grow, you can keep your own seed going and it will help replenish your stock. I'm not sure if it stunted the growth of anything around it. I probably should have pulled out some more of it, but more lessons to be learned. This is the black plastic that I used to smother, and it was something that I got from my father-in-law, so I don't know what it is. I've seen people use silage tarps as an economical way to smother, which is a good thickness, but this stuff doesn't let any light through and it works really good. This was the other area that I used the winter rye in, and you can see the difference in how many weeds are growing in this area. So right in front of us here on the right is where I had it planted, and that was the celosia there. And then this section here in the middle is my cool crops that I got in early, and it is overrun with weeds right now. So I thought that was very interesting to see the difference in there. And then this is the area that I hand pulled all the rye out, and that doesn't have that many weeds either, and I just used grass clippings to mulch that in for weed suppression. And these other two areas have landscape fabric with holes in them. So it is a stark difference between the two, and I don't know if it's just because I missed that first round of weeds germinating, but very interesting because one of the qualities of winter rye is weed suppression. So here is just a close-up view of what I'm talking about. There's like no weeds really coming through any of these, and I just pushed away the winter rye to plant into. It probably would be also better to chop it up for next year, so that is something that I'm looking to do as well. You can see there was one grass growing out of there, but overall, like very low weed pressure from this. So I'm very happy with that quality of this. I think that's really a huge benefit in doing winter rye, is that weed suppression. So that is it for this video. I hope that you give this a try and see how it works for you. It's definitely something that improves your soil health and is well worth the effort to do. As you can see, even just the weed suppression, you can't really see the soil health, but everything that has been planted in an area with winter rye has been doing fantastic this year. So that is my plan again for this fall, and I have a much better plan for termination and just going for it early. All right, take